Joint practices, final preseason game. That means the last chance for players on the bubble to make their case for the Green Bay Packers. And there just aren't that many. This roster is pretty close to set.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Football season's around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bet right now. There's going to be quite the competition here for the last few roster spots, but not the normal kind of competition. I think when we think about competition where it's like, oh, this guy versus this guy for that it's not going to be a lot of, are they going to keep this offensive lineman or this offensive lineman? Are they going to keep this linebacker or this linebacker? It's really, this year, to me, more about the numbers. How many of these players do you want to keep? How many offensive linemen do you want to keep versus how many linebackers do you want to keep? Not which of the offensive linemen do you want to keep? That seems pretty obvious. Well, with some exceptions. I went through and I did the exercise, right? So I was like, let me put together my 53-man roster. So let me take the 3 specialists, put them to the side, and anyone I think that's going to go on PUP, I've got to put them on the side. That means draft picks like Colin Oliver, John Williams, Christian Watson is going to start the year on PUP, in all likelihood anyway. And so Marshawn Lloyd might start the year on PUP, but I had him on my roster. And I sat down, and I think this is the same, more or less the same thing that happened early in the season, though my numbers have changed. This ended up being a relatively straightforward exercise for me. I did not consternate over this really at all. Now, the stakes for me, very different because my job's not on the line getting this right or wrong. But okay, 2 quarterbacks. We know Love and Willis are going to be those guys. I do think there's a question of how many running backs to take, but that's really only a question of, is Marshawn Lloyd going to start the year on IR or not? Because if he is, then you could see someone like Amar Johnson or Israel Abanikanda sneaking on this roster. I'm confident they're going to keep 4 running backs. Jacobs, Lloyd, Wilson, Brooks. So the question is, which 4 is it going to be? They value Brooks too much, and Wilson is just too good a football player for those 2 guys to not both be on this roster. I think Brooks has made himself pretty indispensable as a 3rd down back. They don't really have someone else who's able to do that the same way. The tight ends, ultimately, I think you could argue that if they want to cut the fat on my list, that if my list is going to be wrong somewhere, the most likely place is here, where they have 2 tight ends that were very confident and comfortable making the team. And then 2 guys. It's Fitzpatrick and Sims. And you're going, okay, is there a real winner of this group right now? You know, they seem to like the stuff that John Fitzpatrick's doing. He's been getting some run with the big boys. But Ben Sims he's got the equity there. He's got the sweat equity in that room. I think ultimately, because of some of the roster issues elsewhere, I was able to get 4 on here and really have no problems doing it. You're not really sacrificing anything if you have 4 tight ends on this team. And for special teams, you need stuff like that. The offensive line was the hardest one only because I didn't know which offensive lineman to add at the end. There are 7 locks for this offensive line, barring a trade. Walker, Banks, Jenkins, Ryan, Tom, Belton, Morgan. It's the 5 starters plus Jordan Morgan and Anthony Belton. And then I got to pick one more guy because you got to have 8 at least. And there have been times on this list where I'm like, they need to have 10. Well, I think John Williams is going to start the year on PUP. And then it's basically Donovan Jennings, Jacob Monk, or Kadeem Telfort for that last spot. I don't see it with Kadeem Telfort. I don't think the Packers see it with Kadeem Telfort. And so that leads me to believe it's going to be one of these interior players. Donovan Jennings did not play great early on against the Colts, but that's against DeForest Buckner. They took Monk's playing time or his position. He was running with the ones, and now I'm not sure if he's going to make the team. That's weird. But I think it's going to be at least 8 offensive linemen. I think they could probably get, Jacob Monk onto the practice squad or Donovan Jennings onto the practice squad. Neither of those guys have put like awesome tape out there. The only reason someone would snag them is just to be like, well, the Packers are really good at this. And so let's piggyback on their infrastructure. But 8 offensive linemen feels like a safe bet. And then with the receivers, with Christian Watson on PUP and the injuries currently on this team, like I could have seen Bo Melton doesn't make the position switch. You need that special teams. I could have seen them going with 5 if they had 5 healthy guys plus Christian Watson. And then you have Julian Hicks on the practice squad, Cornelius Johnson on the practice squad. I think those guys are prime practice squad candidates anyway. I ultimately think they will keep 6 because of the injuries. And I just don't, I think the one guy who has an opportunity this weekend is Mecole Hardman. Because I have Reed, Golden, Dobbs, Wicks, Williams. We'll see. Savion Williams might start the year on IR. But remember, you got to make the roster and then get put on IR. And so I assume we don't have any reason to believe that his injury is like long term. And so then I have my 6th receiver is Malik Heath. I was slow pedaling a take in the group chat that I think Julian Hicks, I would just rather have Julian Hicks. But now that, by the way, Malik Heath, I'm probably Malik Heath's biggest fan in the Packers media sphere. But I just feel like the upside of someone like Hicks, I'm sort of enamored by what he can be. Some of the plays that he makes as a receiver. I don't think the blocking and the other things that Malik Heath does is enough to sway me here. And I saw in the Philadelphia game the limitations. He made some big catches. Like you go back 2023, the Giants game, when he catches the touchdown, what should have been the game-winning touchdown, but Joe Barry couldn't stop Tommy DeVito. Like those are big moments. Those hold weight for me. But he was never able to carry that forward and develop into more than just a nice role player. So if they put, I think they would put Heath on this roster. If it were me, I might be tempted to make it Hicks, but I think the easiest thing to do would be to keep Heath on the roster, and then he's the guy that you move on from when Christian Watson comes back. And who knows who gets hurt in the meantime. That frees up your roster flexibility from that standpoint. So I don't think they need to have 7 receivers. 7 receivers, if they wanted to keep Mecole Hardman and take a tight end off, if we're just looking at the offensive block, I don't think that's a crazy way to approach it. I just don't think that's how the Packers are going to approach it, because I don't think the special teams value from Hardman is enough to make them think that he's more valuable than a backup tight end is to the offense and his special teams, because he can play all the teams as well. But Hardman has been an impact special teams player in the past, has been an impact offensive player in the past. We just haven't seen the offense. So I think this is a potentially big week for him. All these receiver injuries. You're playing a very good Seahawks defense with fast corners. There's an opportunity here for you to look good, for you to run past some guys, to make some big plays and make the case to be on this team. And I could see a scenario where he's the 6th guy over someone like Malik Heath, precisely because of someone like Julian Hicks, someone like Cornelius Johnson, guys that can profile somewhat similarly to Heath. And then you're getting that veteran presence and all the things that brings to bear here for the Packers. That's the player on the brink here at receiver. Now, defense. The defense was easy. I don't even know what discussions there are to be had. We'll talk about the non-discussions in our discussion next on Locked On Packers. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. The Packers, still pretty good odds to win the Super Bowl in all of this. The Jordan Love MVP rates looking pretty juicy. There was that article out there. A number of folks picking Jordan Love as a top 5 MVP candidate. Well, you're probably not going to get better odds than you're getting right now for that. Visit FanDuel today. Start planning your futures bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. So with Colin Oliver likely to be a PUP player once the season gets going here, I thought defensive ends, this was pretty easy, unless Barron Sorrell is also going to miss time. But remember, the IR rules are what they are. Rashawn Gary, LVN, Inigbare, Cox, Sorrell. 5 defensive ends. I don't know what else the conversation would even be. Because Colin Oliver has... Aaron Mosby... I know he played some last year. I kind of like the stuff that Deslin Alexander does. Those are practice squad guys that you call up. Now, Colin Oliver, had he made a push here in camp and the preseason, I could have seen very much being on here, taking a defensive tackle off or taking one of those tight ends off. That's just not going to be the reality here because he hasn't played. And even when he gets back and is practicing and all that stuff, he's going to be way, way, way behind. This is looking like a redshirt season for Colin Oliver, which is a bummer because I was excited about his tape and the different kind of pass rusher that he could be. At defensive tackle, I think everybody gets on. I think they keep 6. Clark, Wyatt, Brooks, Stackhouse. That feels like stone cold locks. And then I have Brinson and Wooden on the team. You could tell me Brinson ends up on the practice squad and they keep an extra corner, an extra linebacker. But I've liked what I've seen from Warren Brinson. And he is a draft pick. And we talked about this yesterday in some of the defensive schematic stuff we were talking about. They're playing some of these odd fronts and getting into some weird things where they want a true 5 technique on the field. Well, he's built for stuff like that. And so I like him in this new version of the defense even more than I liked him in the old version of the defense. And the same goes for Stackhouse. Stackhouse is a lock to make this team. Like he is going to make this team, barring injury. And even then, maybe you send him to IR, but the Wooden is the question. That being said, I think you have to keep 6. The injury risk here, Devontae Wyatt has been hurt. Kenny Clark has been hurt. Now he's played, but he's been hurt. And then Stackhouse and Brinson are rookies. Those guys going up a level of competition. You're just, you're worried about their bodies holding up at this level against the grown-ass men that they got to deal with week in and week out in the NFL. So I think you got to keep 6 here. Now, linebacker is the question. Isaiah Simmons was on the hot seat last week as we pushed towards joint practices. He did not acquit himself. I have Welch on the team over him. Walker, Cooper, McDuffie, Hopper, and Welch. I don't think Isaiah Simmons right now is on this team. He's still first team punt gunner, but I don't care. I know special teams factors into this stuff, but you do have to make these trade-offs. Okay, he's this toy for you on special teams. Can he give you anything defensively? And if he can't, what is the opportunity cost of having that player on your team? Is he a Matthew Slater level special teams player? My answer would be almost certainly not. So then what else are you getting? And my answer on that is not enough. Not enough. You need a player who, if they're going to play special teams, and Christian Welch can play special teams, someone who, if they do have to play, can give you something. And you do, I think 5 is probably the minimum off-ball linebacker that you have to carry. So someone's got to make that spot. I think Welch is that guy. Corner is relatively interesting to me. You've got your starters, Hobbs, Nixon, Bullard, plus Valentine. Those guys are stone cold locks. Bo Melton is like a 90%, 95% lock. Then if you told me that they wanted to keep Micah Robinson, I would believe you. If you told me that it was going to be Corey Ballantyne, I would believe you. If you told me their other corner, that last corner, is not on the roster, I would believe you. If you told me it was going to be Kalen King, I would be surprised, but I would believe you. If you told me they keep Jalen Simpson, who they just picked up, seems unlikely to me, but who knows? That seems like a pure practice squad play. He was a corner earlier in his career. Safety now, announced as a safety. I would not be surprised if they keep 5 corners and sign someone. But I think Ballantyne is the perfect kind of player who just makes your roster and he's a placeholder until you can find someone better. And if you can't, then you know that you can count on him. He's a quality special teams player. He is a quality backup to the backup corner, emergency corner, break in case of emergency. You know that he works as that. And then the safeties, it's the 2 starters, McKinney and Evan Williams, Keaton Oladapo, and Zane Anderson. I think that there was a case for Omar Brown to be on this team. But he is dealing with a lung injury, and that seems pretty bad. Now, could the Packers stash him? Put him on IR and just hold on to him? Sure. If they want him to play this year, though, first of all, he's got to get back to health. He's got to be healthy enough to play football, which we hope he can be. But it seems like it's too early to say for sure what the situation is there. So we hope that that's the case, because he's been one of the really feel-good stories of this training camp for the Packers. All right, now what else? There's no kicking competitions. We're not worried about that. And there's no punting, long snapper. Who cares? Well, there's joint practice. There are still things to iron out here. And you're going up against a Seahawks team, really good defensive talent, a weird defensive system. What can you get out of this joint practice? Especially with Jordan Love, we'll see what he's able to do. You've got receivers injuries. What are you trying to figure out here? What is left to find out for you? We'll talk about that next on Locked On Packers. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorizations of your spending. And finally, feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can see a subscription that, for example, you weren't using anymore. That saves you money right there. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. The most important thing the Green Bay Packers can learn at joint practices, and they don't necessarily have to get a definitive answer on this, but something close to it. You want one last piece of evidence that says you should continue the Jordan Morgan left tackle experiment. if he sees that Seattle front, which is not full of world beaters by any means, but it's got some nice players on it, and he looks comfortable again, that might be all she wrote for Rasheed Walker. And I'm not saying the Packers should trade him, and in fact, I don't think they should. We're talking tomorrow, in fact, about probably at some point we will talk about this receiver trade market, because I think the Packers would be players in it, but there's injuries. Like, that's the problem. And that's what I want to see this week with this receiver room too. We'll get to that in a second. But I want to see Jordan Morgan go, no, I'm an NFL left tackle. Like, you stamp it. You faced the Jets. You faced joint practices with the Colts. You faced the Colts. So far, all the boxes have been checked. One more box to check. You go out in joint practices and you stone Leonard Williams, Boye Mafe. You face Byron Murphy in some of these cross-match situations. Like, that will be impressive. That will be nice to see for the Green Bay Packers. Is it going to mean he's going to be the week one starter? No, I think the most likely outcome here is we see a platoon with Jordan Morgan and Rasheed Walker. But I will not be surprised if a really good couple days here leads to the Packers saying, we're just going to start him. Now, I think, Rasheed Walker, remember, the questions at Penn State with him were attitude and coachability. Do you worry about losing him if you bench him? He handled the adversity of, playing and platooning in the first place, and you let the tape speak for itself. I think that's probably the best way to handle this. Put them both on the field and let them figure it out. And the tape will speak for itself. They'll know who's playing better. I wish we got a chance to see that with the receivers, so we got a clear view of this pecking order. But Matthew Golden is he is ascending, and everyone else is watching, because Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks are literally just watching. And Romeo Doubs looks like it's him and Golden. Like, those are the starters right now. Like, if the Packers had to play a game tomorrow, I think you'd see those two guys be the starting receivers in two receiver sets. Now, it's too early to say it's just a redshirt year for Savion Williams, because there's always going to be injuries. We'll see, can Dontavian Wicks stay healthy? Jaden Reed stay healthy? He's missing valuable time right now. And to not get a full look at him through all of this is really a bummer. I don't think we can expect him to be a even medium-sized part of this offense anytime soon. If he has to be, it's because things have gone terribly wrong. Guys have, either fully gone into a shell or are hurt. And the last thing that I think offensively anyway is, can any of these other running backs, Abanikanda, Amar Johnson, can they really make a late push? I think 5 running backs would be crazy. But if it seems like Marshawn Lloyd is not going to be around until week 3, I could see them saying, look, we're just going to shut him down, get him on IR, and not worry about it. And you have one of these other guys. Obviously, Abanikanda in particular has already gone through a couple iterations of this in the NFL. It's not like he's some super hot commodity, and it's not like he's, set the world on fire in the preseason either. So, I think there'd be a good chance you'd be able to sneak him through onto a practice squad, something like that. Those practice squad spots are up for grabs, to be sure. And on defense, again, you're neutered a little bit by injuries. It could be great to see Barron Sorrell and see, okay, this guy is going to be a real part of this rotation, but he's hurt. He's going to miss time. Now, would you love to see Lucas Van Ness go out there, against Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas and what the Seahawks hope is a revamped offensive line and, mess those guys up? You sure would. You sure would. Because you're going up against a pretty damn good offensive line week 1 for the Detroit Lions. It'd be nice to be ready for that and to show, hey, look, this is going to be different. I don't think the Packers need to see that, but I'm sure fans would love to hear about that. You'd love to be scrolling through the social medias going, oh, LVN got him again. Hot damn. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And this is a smaller one, maybe just a personal one of something that I'm interested in. Over the last week, it seems as if, remember the first couple of weeks we talked about this on the show. It was like every other play, it's like, oh, Javon Bullard got beat. Now, some of that was one-on-ones. Matt LaFleur dismissed that stuff, and I have not given up my stock by any means on Javon Bullard. There's been some plays the last couple of days. Oh, nice pass breakup, could have been an interception, like those sorts of things. Getting back to his last collegiate position, which was safety, and the genesis of his NFL career, Jeff Hafley, he started as a safety. Remember, he started opposite Xavier McKinney. That was the guy. Until he had to be moved into that nickel spot because of all the other injuries at corner. Building more of that momentum at safety would be a nice thing to see if he gets some opportunities to do that. Now, if he's going to be your day one nickel, it'd be nice to see him there too. So that's part of the way that the Packers are going to have to balance all of this. I don't know what we're going to be able to see from some of these starters. Like with Jordan Love's injuries, with the receiver injuries, with the defensive injuries, Xavier McKinney and Nate Hobbs, and those guys, like we expect them to play week one. Jordan Love has said straight up, like that is a thing that I'm going to do. So then you're having to kind of pick and choose some of these other things. Matthew Golden, of course. I don't think anyone, like, it's kind of like over for me with that. I don't really need to see it. Like, it will be cool if against, Devin Witherspoon and Reek Woolen that Matthew Golden is out there cooking those boys. Like, yeah, that would be fun to see. That'd be fun to hear about, but I don't need to hear that to believe that he can be an impact player on this Packers offense. Now, if that is in fact the reporting that we get, and remember, Tarvarius Ward, like that Colts secondary was barbecue chicken for Matthew Golden. If that's the case for this group and this Seahawks team with this group of guys and Malik Willis at quarterback, I mean, I don't know. How do you stop the hype train from there? That would be pretty impressive. And it would just, again, underscore, put an exclamation point on what his upside is for this offense and what he can be, which is just already so much more than I ever thought possible in year one for Matthew Golden. So he's going to keep proving me wrong, and I'm going to keep gladly taking those L's. I'll tell you that. All right, back tomorrow as we get you set for the last preseason game. Remember, our squad show live after our Locked On Packers show. So the Seahawks game will happen. We will go live. Locked On Packers YouTube. Go subscribe. And then you won't have to click over. You won't have to change channels. Don't touch that dial. You stick right there, and we will go right into our Locked On Packers squad show. Me, Brandon Snide, Jeff Jagosinski, former Packers coach, longtime coach, college, pros, all over the place. He is a blast to talk to. You guys are going to love hearing from Jags. So that is all coming starting on Saturday. And then during the week in the NFL season, during the week, we're going to have a squad show, a live squad show. And we're going to be live after the games, an hour and a half of post-game coverage from your pals at Locked On Packers. So follow me on the social medias, follow the podcast on the social medias, subscribe everywhere you get podcasts, subscribe on our YouTube page so you can watch our squad shows and, of course, Locked On Packers, and you can stay Locked On Packers.